Today's episode is brought to you by our members, especially thanks to Jerry Mangona. You can join him and our other great people at patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Hello, friends from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. This is your Daily Detroit for Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. Today's show is about today's news. Ford's massive investment, adding another 2,000 jobs in the state that are focused right here in Southeast Michigan, and how it fits into the greater conversation around mobility, electric vehicles, and the future of automotive. To help unpack that, joining me is Glenn Stevens from Mish Auto. Glenn Stevens, he's the executive director of Mish Auto, longtime friend of the show. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Jared. Thanks for the time today.
Yeah, well, I don't think we could pick a better day considering the news peg that happened. You know, Michigan is getting a huge investment from Ford. We're looking at $2 billion, 3,200 jobs. You're going to see investments with 2,000 positions at the Rouge Electric Vehicle Center down in Dearborn, the F-150 Lightning, Michigan Assembly Plant in Wayne, Ranger Pickup, Flat Rock Assembly Plant, Mustang Coupe, Monroe, parts and service. Like, how is this announcement going to impact the overall industry, and how do you read it as a sign?
First, we take a step back and remember that we've been doing this for 120 years in Michigan, and Ford's been here a long time, as have some of the other companies. So they are well established here. They have a strong manufacturing base, as well as global headquarters in engineering and design. And the key really is making that manufacturing base solid for the future. And that's what this does. When you look at a reinvestment or investment of this nature into your existing facilities, that means that they have plans for them to be here for a long time. That's good for Michigan.
Well, electrification is here to stay.
Absolutely.
And part of that is high-tech talent. So what are some of the things that you're working on to kind of help bolster that?
So I think what we have to look at is that we have advanced manufacturing, and the shop floor of today is very different. It requires a lot of digital skills. I mean, robots have to be programmed. Automated sweepers have to be maintained and programmed too. So the shop floor of today is very, very critical for tech talent. But when we look at the design, the engineering, and the testing of today's electric vehicles and where things are going, particularly on the connected and software part of the vehicle, that's going to require a lot of tech talent for the industry we have. And for Michigan to grow in that knowledge tech economy, we need to attract and retain and develop more people like software engineers here. It's essential to Michigan's future.
Well, and software was becoming more and more of a part of ICE engines, but when it comes to electric, it's even more crucial.
Absolutely, yeah. There's actually more semiconductors and electronics that drive an electric propulsion system than an internal combustion system. That's a fact. So that's important. But the vehicle connectivity, how the vehicle is a software operating platform, how subscription services tie into your vehicle, all that requires coding, development, engineering, integration. And that's really essential for us for Michigan.
Well, and it's part of what these companies are using to stand out, right? Because, I mean, so many of these vehicles now, the quality of vehicles has improved so much. Like, whatever you spend, your car's going to get you to work. It's going to get you where you need to go. But what will help stand it out is, of course, the design and the looks, but that software experience, like how it feels when you're behind the wheel, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've had a couple interesting conversations, and I always do, about this subject. But if you look at Tesla, people are not buying Teslas for their fit and their finish and their quality. All they care about is the tech and that cachet that goes with the brand. But the same thing for Ford, GM, Volkswagen, Toyota, Honda. It's that tech interface, and yes, the reliability and the safety, that cannot be assumed. But when it comes to technology and electrification and connectivity, that's what people want. And younger generations are going to want more and more of that. That's also a way for companies to monetize things too, which is different from the normal business model in the auto industry.
So you're definitely seeing across the automakers are getting the sense that the expectations of what people want out of their vehicle has changed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The consumer experience was one thing not that long ago. It was how many cup holders does your minivan have? Now we're talking about how much connectivity does my vehicle have to everything around me, to infrastructure, to my home, to my phone, to my, my friends and my neighbors. That's what they want. The vehicle is the most high-tech piece of software-enabled equipment on the face of the earth. There's nothing more than our vehicles.
What I think is encouraging overall, and, I've ridden in a Tesla, I've ridden in a number of electric vehicles, the Mustang, others. The thing that our automakers have that is such an advantage is that once they start turning in a direction, they have the ability for that fit and finish, the reliability, the overall. Whereas, like, if you look at some of the other electric, we were talking about Tesla fit and finish, like, what if people I talk about cars with Eric, like, we have a running text thread about jokes about like door gaps and air getting in and all that other stuff. That doesn't happen with GM. That doesn't happen with Ford like that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't because, again, 120 years of making these vehicles. But, I also want to pause and say, look, we would not be having this electrification conversation if it wasn't for Elon Musk and Tesla.
For sure.
I've been in the factory 2 times. I've been in the R&D center a couple times. I've interacted with the company. I've seen how they've grown. Friends that are at Lucid now, very cool vehicle that they're developing. We're here because they push the envelope, those people, and I think they need to have credit. Now, where things go from here, it's hyper and competitive, and electrification is here because there are reasons. Climate needs this, and consumers want this, and we're actually behind in this country versus Europe and Asia. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out.
What is part of the thing that's driving electric vehicles to really gain that percentage share? Like, it's really starting to build traction. It's still a smaller percentage, but that percentage relatively just growing so quickly. What do you think's driving that?
It's growing because the ecosystem around it is growing too. Remember, we have a gas station on just about every corner, right? I don't ever have to worry about filling up. With an electric vehicle, you need the infrastructure, you need to be able to do the weather. And 80% of the charging is done in the home. So that's really important, that infrastructure too. But vehicles are going to have to become more affordable, and they are. There's been some moves lately. General Motors just made one because they're not for the masses right now. And for mass consumer adoption to happen, vehicles have to be accessible to the masses.
Yeah, you're referring to that General Motors announced they're going to be more aggressive with their pricing on the Bolt. And then Jim Farley over at Ford followed saying that there's a price war coming on electric, which is going to be interesting. And I think it's going to drive a lot more work because when you drive those volumes up, then your prices are really going to start to come down.
Yeah, you're getting the economies of scale. But right now, the battery system from a weight, from a cost to the percentage of the vehicle, it's pretty significant for any OEM around the world. That's going to have to come down. We're going to see dramatic transformation in electric battery systems over the next few years. It's really, that's like the holy grail right now, extending range, getting weight out, and getting cost out of that system. And there's so much that goes with it, including the minerals that we have to get to make these batteries. That's probably a whole nother podcast.
Oh, it could be. And also looking at recycling, using the minerals we already have like in the system and recycling those batteries.
You want to bring as much of the minerals in those batteries, extract them, recycle them, bring them back to the beginning of the assembly process of batteries. That's the key for efficiencies. That's why Ford is constructing Blue Oval City in Memphis the way they're doing it. That's a full life cycle, bring it back, battery recycling all the way back to the beginning of the line and do it again.
Speaking of battery technology, where do you feel that Michigan and Metro Detroit, Mich Auto is also something that's tied to the Detroit Regional Chamber. How do you feel we are positioned in that, and kind of what are we looking for going forward to really like hit the mark on that and be a leader?
I think there's some real core assets here already. You have things like the University of Michigan Battery Center. You have OEMs and suppliers and R1 universities doing research. You have companies like Our Next Energy that are developing new battery technology here. So I think there's a really strong core. But that's only going to grow if companies that want to be part of that ecosystem, just like they have for the internal combustion engine, came here. There's flags from all over the world flying in Metro Detroit of suppliers and companies that are part of the ecosystem. We need that battery system to be the same as it was for the internal combustion engine the last 100 years. And so that's going to be critical. And again, talent's going to be probably the driving force.
So when it comes to that talent, if you had a wish list of a few things, however many you want, like, when it comes to that kind of talent, what would you want on your wish list so that we are positioned to get that and have that be here?
The number one thing we really believe, and we've studied this and looked at this, is we develop and nurture and grow your own. So the kids that are growing up in Michigan, we need to make sure that they're getting the right base level education. I'm going to say it because it's so essential, and that we're giving them career path planning into careers that they could be in any industry. But for our specific industry, we need more of these young people to be channeled into STEM careers and even coding and careers like that, because that's the type of talent that the industry needs for the future. I think most companies will tell you that they believe that 75% of their employees today and for the future are going to come from traditional means like schools, universities, community colleges, and 25% are going to come from non-traditional coding academies and things like that. And so that's really important for us, is to grow our own talent and keep it here. Retention. And then we need to attract more people here too. Michigan population and demographics are not in our favor right now.
No, and so what are some of the strategies to do that part?
Well, you have to be a place that people want to live. So strong communities, whether it's an urban center like Detroit or even Grand Rapids, or if it's a rural community like Marquette or Traverse City or Sheboygan, strong communities, digital broadband access anywhere in the state at any time, so that remote worker, that tech worker can work anywhere they want. Physical infrastructure, that's important too. And then it's an intangible, but the philosophy and the whether or not that it's a welcoming, inclusive state. That's where people want to live. So the things you can see and the things you believe in are important to where people want to live. And that's really something that we're focused on too.
I mean, that welcoming and inclusive part is part of what I think we're really wrestling with as a state, even in our politics. That's something that is like a real conversation right now.
We absolutely are. Abortion. There's an issue right there. I mean, that is an issue where, if you believe in choice, and a lot of people believe in that choice, but the issue is should we be looking at whether or not a person has a choice to make decisions, whether it's that issue or something else, in an inclusive type of community and environment, or we're going to be looking at a law that's been on the books since 1931 and that we're going to revert to that. Doesn't make sense for the future of the world we live in right now.
Well, in a previous life, I worked on something that did not succeed in dealing with changes to Elliott Larson that eventually got changed by the law, by a court decision. But as we've learned, court decisions can be reversed, that kind of thing. Elliott Larson, where it's, creates a more inclusive environment for employees and where, there's protections for all kinds of different employees. I think that, more and more, especially people, and I get this especially from listeners like under 40, that matters to them. They look at that stuff and go, is this a place where even if I'm not of that group, that my friends are going to be safe, protected, and valued there?
It matters to people just like it used to matter a long time ago. My great-grandfather came from Finland to work in the mines in the UP, and he came because he thought there was a place that was opportunity for a better life for him. And he worked hard, and he built a life, and that's what people want to do. But they want to do it in a place where they can work hard, be rewarded for it, build a family and a community that, frankly, they can express their beliefs in, whatever those may be. And, you and we go to Hamtramck all the time. That's what I think is so cool about Hamtramck. It's like this melting pot of people. What if we had more melting pots in Michigan? And I think that's what we need, is Michigan to be more of a physical melting pot, but also it's got to be from a belief standpoint too.
Well, and a couple stats about Hamtramck. It's one of the fastest growing cities. It's one of the only growing cities in the Metro Detroit area.
No shocker, right?
Right. And it's also the most population dense. If you want an area that's a lot closer to a Brooklyn, that's Hamtramck.
Yeah. I go over to London every now and then, or did pre-pandemic, to watch Premier League. And then when I'm in London, I go, this is different, and I was born in Munich. And when I was in Munich, it's different. We need to make sure that Michigan, I come back to Michigan, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Marquette, the Sioux, Houghton, there's a philosophy of you can be who you want to be, and you can live in a beautiful state that's got fresh water, and you've got infrastructure around you, and you've got good education. That's what's going to attract Michigan to be a growth place.
And those connections, too. You think about your Royal Oaks, your Ferndales, the Woodward Corridor, up the east side, all those things. And I reference Metro Detroit, but obviously that applies in all those other places, too, so people can get to work. And it's also in that way, whether you're talking about the broadband or you're talking about connections to places, that's also increases a more equitable environment as well, too.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't have mass transit, but we have to figure some solutions out, because people have a basic right. They have a lot of basic rights, but first of all, they need to be able to get to work, to education, and to healthcare. And a lot of people don't have the ability to do that because they don't have that transportation. And that's one of the things that we've been focused on for a long time with the mayor's office through the Detroit Mobility Coalition, is how can the auto industry use technology to solve some of these issues we have with transit. And there's a lot of things to tackle. We're covering a lot of ground right here, but I think that the general notion of everything is we're trying to make Michigan a growth state and where people want to live and work and play. And there's a lot of components that go to that, and there's a lot of unity from a political standpoint that's needed to make that happen.
Right, and I really do hope that does happen. It's always great to talk to you, Glenn, and I got to say, go LaRouche.
Go LaRouche. It's always fun to be there. Thanks. Take care.
And we are done for today. Of course, if you've got feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. A couple of quick reminders. On Saturday, we will be at Ferndale Pride. Come by the Arch, check it out, take some pictures. It'll be fun. And then on Friday, June 10th, our 1000th episode celebration at the Congregation. It is a happy hour. Check out the event on Eventbrite or Facebook, or just, feel free to come on by. It would be so great to see you. All right, tomorrow, Devin O'Reilly joins me as he does every Friday for a special edition of the show. And then next week, we're back to regular business, but we're going to add some conversations we had up here that I think you'll enjoy. I know I did having them. I'll make sure to add them sooner than later. I heard the feedback. You want them fresh. I'm going to make sure they are. So with that, I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and I'll see you around Detroit.